After close to 4 years of near silence, the Apple TV 4K 2026 is finally close enough to reveal that it is worth walking through exactly what it changes, what it does not, and whether any of that adds up to a worthwhile upgrade. This is not a hands-on unit sitting on a desk yet, but between insider reporting, supply chain leaks, and Apple's own software previews at WWDC, there is enough consistent detail here to build a genuinely useful picture of what buying this device is actually going to feel like. Start with the part that will disappoint anyone hoping for a redesign. The outside of the box is barely changing. Every report points to the same compact, rounded black enclosure Apple has used since the second-generation model. There is no dramatic new shape, no bold color options, nothing that would make this recognizable as a new generation just by glancing at it on a shelf. That is a deliberate choice, and honestly a sensible one. The current design already tucks neatly behind a TV and does not draw attention to itself, which is exactly what a streaming box should do. The real story with this device was never going to be about how it looks. It is about what is happening underneath that unchanged shell. The single biggest change is the processor. Moving from the A15 Bionic to the A17 Pro is not a small bump. It is roughly 2 full chip generations worth of improvement in raw performance and efficiency. On a device that is just playing 4K video, that kind of jump would be overkill. But this device is not just playing video anymore. Apple has built its next generation of Siri to run a meaningful chunk of its processing directly on device rather than routing everything through the cloud. And that requires serious silicon. In practical terms, that should translate into voice commands that respond almost instantly, smoother menu navigation with zero stutter, and apps that open without that familiar half-second loading delay older Apple TV owners know all too well. Siri itself is really the centerpiece of this whole release, even though it lives entirely in software. Apple previewed its overhauled assistant at WWDC in June 2026, more than 2 years after first showing it off back in 2024 and repeatedly delaying it. The new version is designed to understand personal context, hold more natural conversations, and pull information across a user's other devices rather than answering everything with a generic web-style response. On the Apple TV specifically, that should mean the difference between scrolling endlessly through 5 streaming apps looking for something to watch and simply asking for what you are in the mood for, a specific genre, decade, or even actor, and getting a direct, accurate answer pulled from whatever you're already subscribed to. Whether that experience feels as smooth in practice as it sounds on paper is the one thing no amount of leaked reporting can confirm until real units are in real hands. But the ambition here is clearly bigger than a simple spec bump. Wireless performance is the other meaningful upgrade, and it is the kind of change that is easy to overlook until you actually live with it. Reports point to support for a more modern Wi-Fi standard, likely Wi-Fi 7, which matters a lot more in 2026 than it would have a few years ago. The average home now has dozens of connected devices fighting for bandwidth at once. Phones, laptops, smart cameras, locks, thermostats, speakers, and older wireless standards start to show their age in that environment. A more modern wireless chip inside the Apple TV should mean fewer stutters during 4K playback, faster app downloads, and quicker, more reliable pairing with accessories like game controllers, especially in busy, device-heavy homes. On the subject of controllers, gaming deserves its own section here because it is quietly one of the more interesting parts of this upgrade. The current Apple TV can technically run Apple Arcade titles, but the aging A15 chip has kept the platform stuck with lighter, mobile-style games rather than anything with real graphical ambition. A jump to the A17 Pro changes what is possible. It is enough horsepower to support meaningfully better lighting, shading, and frame rates, and paired with a wireless controller, it starts to make a genuine case for the Apple TV as a casual home console rather than just a streaming box that happens to run a few games on the side. This will not replace a PlayStation or an Xbox for anyone serious about gaming, but for a household that wants something simple to hand a kid or pull out for casual co-op play, it is a real step forward. Storage upgrades round out the hardware side. The current lineup tops out around 64 gigabytes or 128 gigabytes. And while that has been fine for years of casual streaming use, it starts to feel tight the moment someone downloads a handful of larger Apple Arcade titles or wants offline content for travel. Reports suggest higher base storage tiers on the new model, which should quietly fix one of the more common frustrations longtime owners have had with the current generation. So, is it worth the upgrade? That really depends on which category of buyer you fall into. If you already own the current third-generation Apple TV 4K and mostly use it for basic streaming, Netflix, a few apps, nothing fancy, this upgrade is going to feel like overkill in the short term. The current model still plays 4K content just fine, and unless the new Siri experience turns out to be a genuine daily use game changer, the performance jump alone will not be very noticeable for pure streaming. On the other hand, if you are someone who wants to lean into the smart home side of Apple's ecosystem, cares about voice control actually working well, or has been eyeing Apple Arcade as a lightweight gaming option, this upgrade starts to look a lot more compelling. For anyone still using an even older Apple TV, the 2017 model or the original Apple TV HD, this is an easy call. Apple has already confirmed that tvOS support for those older models is ending, which means missing out on new features and eventually security updates. Combined with the performance gap, holding on to that hardware any longer stops making much sense once the new model is officially available. Pricing remains the one genuine wild card in this whole story. Some analyst reporting has pointed toward Apple aiming lower, potentially under $100, to compete more aggressively with budget boxes from Roku and Amazon. Other more recent reporting suggests the opposite direction entirely, citing broader cost increases across Apple's hardware lineup.